I'm Spencer.
And I'm Amanda.
And this is the Literary Grapevine. If you watched us grow up or are under 18, this podcast is not for you.
But for today, we have not discussed the book, the wine, or tasted the wine. So this is all real time, and it's going to be a time.
Especially with this book. We'll jump to it, but as a preview, last week's episode, if you didn't listen to it, was a little bit of a lighter romance. This one, we really dove right into dark romance. So just for fair warning, we are talking about Haunting Adeline, and there are a lot of trigger warnings with this book. Some of that may come up in our discussion. So please check the trigger warnings before you go ahead and listen, and we'll make sure we put that on our post as well. But just be aware of the trigger warnings.
Good point. No, thank you for sharing that. But let's get started with the wine before we dive into this book, because I have so many thoughts.
I do too, and we're gonna definitely need wine for it, so it's gonna be good.
Yeah, this is going to be a large pour for me.
Yes, me too. So this is the 1895 Bodega Norton Malbec 2021, or yes, 2021. Sorry if I can read, which ironically this is a podcast about reading, and I can't read the wine label. So here we go. Off to a great start. So why I chose this is I specifically wanted to go with a Malbec because it's very dry. It's a dry red, but it's very full-bodied. And I felt like this book had really dark themes, which in my head kind of related to a darker wine and a more full-bodied wine. And so that's why we went with the Malbec. And this one specifically has grapes from Argentina, and they kind of have two different types of grapes that really typically come in with the Malbec. It's the Argentina and the French grapes. And so we went with Argentina, not for any specific reason, just because I felt that this Malbec was good, and we'll see. We'll see if it's good. Let's do it. Let's do a pour and a taste rating.
That did not sound like an amateur wine drinker, Spencer. That sounded like a semi-professional. Well, cheers. Let's give it a taste.
Cheers.
This is my type of wine. I could drink this every day. And this glass will be finished by the end of our podcast, mostly because I need it to get through this conversation.
I might have the whole bottle, so we'll see. Work tomorrow? Who needs that?
And on this podcast, welcome. Here we go. No, honestly, Spencer, I like this wine a lot. I haven't tasted like Malbecs a lot. They're not usually my go-to, but this is just after the first taste, like I'll buy this bottle again. And also the color of it just kind of reminds me of this book. Like, it's dark.
I know. I mean, even and once again, our wine pairings are like so we make whatever connections we can. But even this, like, the dark themes, the dark red themes of the book just match the wine. And I felt like the dryness was a little bit of the main characters' feelings too, of some of the banter and how they talk. And then the full bodiness of a red wine really spoke to me as like a dark romance. So yeah, I would give this rating like 5 out of 5.
Oh yeah,
I really like this one.
This is a 5 out of 5 for me. It is $12 a bottle.
We like that. We like Friday night drunk readings. So, just that's like my perfect Friday night, is going and grabbing a bottle of wine and grabbing a book, and then like not talking to Josh, not talking to anybody, and being like, leave me alone. I'm processing the week and I want to be my little hermit. So
it is my time.
This would be a good bottle for that.
Oh, I could not agree more. You did a great job picking this one out.
Okay. Amanda, why don't we start with our yes ifs and our no ifs? And I'm so looking forward to yours.
Me too, Spencer. Me too. I think that you should read this book if you enjoy terror, if you enjoy being frightened, if you like people jumping out at you, if you like being outside alone in the dark. This book is for you. This book is not for you if you are a scaredy cat. Like me, I was just in the bathroom and I saw something come like in my peripheral vision. I screamed, I jumped, and it was just my little dog just sitting there with a bone, just ready to play. And now she's scared of me because I screamed at her because I was like, "What are you doing?" And I was like, "I'm only reacting this way because of this book." No,
Book, yeah.
no, if you are a scaredy cat. Yes, if you just love the thrill of things. Like, I am not a thrill seeker. Baseline, that's where I stand.
I think that's a really good that's a really good place to be with it. And I think that really accurately represents it at a high level because it really is um it's not a thriller per se, but it has thriller vibes, but it's a dark romance.
It
And
is.
I think this is something that I would say, yes, if you're a fan of dark romance, then read this book. No, if you have not read a dark romance before, this is not the one to dive into. I think there's a lot of other books that are good. You can you can go from ombre. We'll go ombre, light to dark, right? This one we pretty much just went last week light, and this week on the opposite
Dark.
end. Uh, dark romance. So my no would be if you haven't read dark romance, I wouldn't start with this one because it is pretty dark and there's a lot of themes. And I thought this book was fun. So, which I know is not exactly the description I would give this, like to be put on this book, but I did think it was fun. So, like for me, I'm like okay with the dark romances, but I've also sprinkled in some other ones there. And like a one I've read before this was Hooked.
Liked Hooked.
But Hooked was good, and I think Hooked was like a gateway
Yes.
to this because there were in the spicy scenes there were still some
Mm-hmm.
commonalities. So I think Hooked is a good first dark romance if you want to get into that. And I know people who probably wouldn't classify it as a dark romance, but I think that's why it's a good starting place. And then maybe if you liked Hooked, going into Haunting Adeline with the note that it's like amped up several spicy levels.
Several, several spicy levels. But I agree with you. The dark. I don't mind dark romance. I really don't. It's just not my. It's probably not my go-to. But like I read Hooked super quickly because it wasn't as deep maybe in some areas. Like I didn't feel like I was.
It's also like off of the length. This is a pretty
It
lengthy
was
book.
long.
I think the beginning was a little harder for
Okay.
me because you and I think this is pretty reasonable because you don't have the character development, and so you don't know enough about uh the cat and the cat mouse duology. You don't know enough about him, and so it just seems creepy. And I even at the book end of the book, I'm like, it's still creepy, but I get it. I don't know. But so it was. You needed the character development, or at least I needed the character development to really get into the book, and it took a little while to get there.
Yeah.
And I wasn't entirely sold on the main female main character. I think like I liked her, but I liked Daya better, or Daya.
Yeah,
I
I
don't know
did
how to.
too. And I agree. I agree with that. I feel like in the very beginning we started to get to know her really well. Like I think it's I mean, even in the first few chapters, we know what her career is, what direction she's going. That really matters to her, and then it kind of fizzles out. We don't even talk about it really. Moving down,
Until at the very end, she's like, "Oh yeah, I'm also." She's an author. That's like said right in the beginning, and at the end of the book, she's like, "Oh, I should have been writing these past few months." It's like, okay, so we totally skipped over like the whole career thing, which was fine. I mean, that wasn't the point of the story, but I think as soon as like the male main character was introduced, like her career like went out the window. I think if you're looking for something with strong feminist vibes, this is probably not it. Um,
facial expressions. If you're listening,
yeah,
sorry, you're missing out on some high quality faces that I'm making.
yeah. Okay, but I will say, I like, and I'm sorry, mom, ahead of time. And I know the thing is, she's gonna agree with me because she reads all these books and she tries to talk to me. And I'm like, I'm not talking to my mother about Den of Vipers. Like, I'm sorry, I'm just not. I am. And I told her about Den of Vipers. I saw it on her bookshelf around Christmas. This is a side tangent. And I was like, Mother, that's a very dark book. She's like, Oh, I've read worse. And I was like,
Okay.
I don't want to know. Don't want to know. Don't want to hear about it. She really wants to talk about it. So this is me in my way saying, Mom, you can hear this, but we can't.
We're not going to talk about it, Mom.
I ate this book up. Like, I loved like the kind of like Zayd's complete disregard for like her as a strong female character. But it was weird because he also did.
He did.
You know, he called her a goddess at one point. That's something. Amanda, what do you think? I've been talking too much.
No, it's one of those things. I was like, I hate this guy. It drives me insane. He's everything I don't want.
He was a little overly confident in his ability to get Adeline to love him. Yeah. And that was very apparent from the beginning. And yeah, so I think if you ignore blatant disrespect main character, it's okay. But I think that's also the part of the book.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I think like it's one of those books that you're like, if it was real life, I would be terrified. I would absolutely be terrified. Like, I mean, unbelievably terrified. But because it was a book and I was like enjoying it from a, you know, like living, like putting on another coat and living a different life, I loved it. But if it was my life, I would be terrified.
Fair enough.
So,
but it was, I will say, I was entertained the whole time. And, you know, the theme of cat and mouse, right? You know, starting it, that it's cat and mouse. Like everybody knows what that looks like. It's not Tom and Jerry. I'm so sorry for any of you that think that that's the direction that it's going. But
Tom and Jerry fiction.
And they wove that into the story so much that there wasn't anything when reading it that I was like, oh, that doesn't fit the story. I was never surprised, I guess, by what I was reading.
What I really did enjoy was kind of the murder mystery plot too. That was like in a different, and this is known pretty like in the beginning of the book, of in like the 1940s. You know, they're also trying to solve a mystery. Like her Adeline and Dea, like they're trying to solve a mystery, and I loved that part, and I loved the correlations and the self-reflection Adeline had of like being like, do I see myself in this? So it was like a lot of like she was going through a lot of cognitive dissonance, but we were able to read along with it. And I really love crime shows and crime books and stuff, so I loved that part. But I'm curious about what you thought, because it was a whole book.
I did enjoy trying to figure that out on my own too, going through and reading it, and how they were placed as well. The letters were placed really along with the story. They did it. That was so fun. That was a really fun part to read. And I'm not a huge crime reader. I'm really not. I don't mind it, but it's just not something that ever has really appealed to me a lot. And so I did find myself like, oh, maybe I should read more books like this where I am trying to figure things out. Because it really tied back into every part of the story. And I like that.
Yeah, I agree. I think that was it was well placed throughout. And I think it was actually at some points like the more interesting point of the story. Because okay, well, do we want to move into the spoilers? Because I'm so excited.
It is spoilers time.
Okay, so if you have not read the book, don't listen, or listen, but know that there will be spoilers. And then in the information for the podcast, we'll also put at what minute you can listen back or fast forward to where we give our rating, and then we talk about next week's book. But this point forward, until we get to the last few minutes, will be with spoilers. So Amanda, I'm so curious about what you highlighted. I only highlighted 3.
I highlighted like 14.
And I only started highlighting at 83% because I felt like that was where some of the stuff in my head, I was like, this is really effed up.
Wait, where did you start highlighting?
At like 83%.
Yeah, that's fair. I'm pretty sure that's probably where I stopped highlighting. I don't even know why I highlighted some of the things that I highlighted. I highlighted everything from how he felt when he first saw her to the really in-depth thoughts that he had about human trafficking, and I highlighted things about making somebody fall in love with dark parts of you. I just a little bit of everything. I highlighted when she wanted to slap him. There was so many emotions happening and so many thoughts and so many conversations happening in this book that every time I saw something, I was like, I just highlighted it because I was like, I don't know how I feel about it in this moment right now, but for some reason it caught my eye. I There are things I will not say on here that I highlighted that just really threw me for a loop. There was one thing that I remember that I really did enjoy, and I don't even think I highlighted it, but I read it and I was like, that makes sense. Is when she's talking, and it was kind of toward the beginning of when they weren't together or anything. It was just she was accepting him as her stalker, and which whatever.
Love it.
And
Love it.
she was
Love all
like
of this.
talking about how messed up he was, right? She's like, how whatever is he? And she's like, but also, like, how messed up am I that I like it? Because up until that point, I was like, this poor girl. Like, I knew she was going to end up liking it. Like, we know what the direction that this is going to go. But up until this point, she was like, absolutely not. This is miserable. I'm calling the police. I don't know what's going on. And then all of a sudden, she's like, wait. For the book, I was like, yeah, I needed to hear that for me to kind of continue on and be okay.
Yeah, you because in the beginning she was like so adamant about being like, no, I'm freaked out by having a stalker, rightfully so, right? Like I think that was the point where it then just stopped being realistic because she like kept calling the cops, and of course he's some amazing hacker who can destroy evidence in case, like, of course that's in every book or every crime show. There's always one person who can do that. um uh, but I did like the complexities of being like he was like that, but he was doing it for a good reason. Not the stalking per se, but he was doing what he was doing for good reasons, and he really cared about trafficking and making sure that human trafficking rings were shut down. And so that made his character, once you learn that, like, it made his character seem more intriguing, because at the beginning I was just like, he's just a possessive stalker, like it's just creepy, and he was like throughout the whole thing he was possessive stalker, and the whole time he's like, it's because I loved you, but he didn't even know her, like he didn't know her.
No.
But again, I loved it. Like the feminist in me was just like, no, 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 this is so messed up. But then the part of me that is it weird that I like it, was like, yes, keep going, keep going. And I think one of the I will say one of the parts that I like made me like kind of come out of the world of being like, oh my gosh, what's happening next? Like, this is great. I love reading it. Like, it's a great love story, you know? What made me come out of that though for a moment was that 90% he was talking to his friend Jay, right? Or, I mean, it's like associate. He wasn't really his friend. And Jay makes a comment about how, because it's like, hey, look over Addie while I'm doing that thing. And Jay's like, okay, like, what if I fall in love with her after watching? And he was like, well, if you do, like, he said some really bad things. But then Jay goes, that's okay. I like it consensual anyways. And Zayd says, sounds to me like you don't understand a woman's body well enough to know when it sings for you, even when her mouth tries to resist. I was like, no! Thumbs down for me. And I think that's the thing about this book. Like, if you overanalyze it, it's gonna be a terrible experience, because you think about it in reality, or you think about it if it was happening to you, and you start analyzing in that frame, not gonna be a good ride. Like, not gonna be, no. But if you just go in and be like, I know this is messed up, but I'm here just for the experience, then it's okay. I think if you like dark romance. If you don't like dark romance, it's not a good.
No,
not a good
yeah,
book.
I completely agree with you. I had to reset myself a few times, be like, Amanda, it's a book. Like you said, when we find out what he's doing, right, for the world, you're like,
I
oh,
know.
he's just a little broken, and he just, but he's doing
He
such,
doesn't know how to
yeah, he
love.
doesn't know how to love, and she's gonna show him how to love. And then the thing I think that most probably frustrated me just as a romantic is that there were times where I felt like it was going to be really sweet and kind and soft, and it would start that way, and then he would be like, no. Like it would turn like
Okay,
aggressive, and I was like, no, just love her
that's the
softly.
part. That's the part I loved. I was like, sorry,
It's okay.
Amanda. When they would get all sweet and gushy, I'm like, okay, like I could have read a rom com, like no, give me the give cat and mouse. Like he's calling her a little mouse. Like I don't want them to hold hands and cuddle. Like come
I did.
on, it's I know you did. I know you did, and there were times that it was good, like it was cute, but I think for the most part, I was like, no, just it's not like this. No, I'm not reading Pride and Prejudice. Like, come on.
I will say, if anybody ever said run, I'd be like, absolutely not. I am too tired, first of all.
I don't have the energy for your game, Sade.
Yeah, for your games, I'll like maybe run a few steps and then please just catch me. I'm not doing this.
You're like, oh no, I fell.
I tripped over the air. Yeah, no, like when she got outside and was running and tripped over a
I
root,
was
I
just
was like, come on. No.
and he he slammed her against the tree, and like I'm like, there's no way her back wouldn't have been like completely, I mean, torn up.
No.
Where some of these books, it gets a little past the point of being like, oh, maybe some pain can be a little bit pleasurable, but like there's some situation in this book that I'm like, no, her back would have been like bleeding and had like bark in it,
And she would have been crying, like actually crying in
Yeah,
pain, not like the type of pain that he is wanting to inflict. Like
if somebody slammed me against a tree in my back, I'd be like, I'm almost in my 30s. This is too much. I'm not 21 anymore. Not that that was okay when I was 21, but not it didn't happen when I was 21. It just would have hurt my back. That's all. That's what I was trying to say.
like don't ruin my clothes would be my thing. It was, I mean, I liked the book. I will where now okay, I say that. You can tell in my voice. Like I didn't love I
You're trying to be
I
nice.
liked it. I didn't love it. Mostly because I think I said this in like our very first like intro episode of our podcast is like I am so like I get sad about the world anyway. Like I read my daily newsletters about what's going on in the world. Like I know things aren't going great, and that's how I stay connected. And I watch the news like an 80-year-old woman like that 2 a.m. and reading about really tough things happening too for me is hard because I feel like I spend a lot of time outside of like I go to books for learning and I go to books for enjoyment. And so whenever it does get to like, and I hate that I'm this way, but when I gets to like real topics that are this deep and this intense, I get just kind of back down into that little like, the world just really sucks. And so as much I did enjoy the cat and mouse part, and I thought that their relationship dynamic was hilarious in some parts, and I loved that. I liked that, and I feel like we needed that other side of him of what he was doing to like him, or else there would not have been a reason for me to read it if he didn't do something great for the world. But that was heavy to read.
Yeah, I think I kind of like when I would do that, I just kind of I read it, but I read really fast, so I didn't have to
Yeah.
process because I totally agree. Like, that wasn't. I think I liked it from a dark romance
Mhm.
side, but as far as being a dark book and having dark themes other than like stalker romance and kind of intense spiciness, like the actual dark themes of what Zayd's doing and trying to stop human trafficking and all that, I was just like, oh, like it just yeah, it just really it makes you start thinking about the world and also like what's actually happening in the world and being like, no, this
Does
could be
happen. Yeah.
legitimate. I wonder if that's a common
Mhm.
theme in
I
dark
don't know.
romances because exactly what you said, as far as like having to justify someone's behavior, like a stock car or something, maybe having to justify it is having that polar opposite of doing something really um, pure for the
Right.
world. And so I wonder if that's a theme in dark romances. So it'd be interesting to find
Yeah,
that.
or like a reason, something from your childhood, whatever
Oh
comes
yeah,
up.
yeah, some sort of like
Yeah.
trauma or something that makes you be like, okay, this is why you are that way, and I
And
understand,
it did
where
tie
people have.
into the story, and I guess she was marked, so to say, by Mark of all people. And so it did tie until the to the end of the story, really. Like I
Yeah,
wondered, I will say, when I was about 85, 90% of the way through it, I was like, this isn't gonna end. No.
no, it's not going to be a cute like
No, it's
ending.
going to be a terrible
Um,
ending. And I knew that at that point. I was like, I know I need to keep reading, but it's going to leave me needing to read the second book, which I'm going to be honest with you all. I decided before I read this book that I was not going to read the second one. And now I believe that I am stuck and am going to have to read the second one. And I am not happy about it.
and supposedly the second one's a lot darker,
Spencer,
because I was reading the foreword on the second one, and the author herself states that it is a lot
how about you
darker
read it
than.
and then just tell me if it ends happy?
I'll tell you. I'll give you the highlights. I'll read it. Give you the
Perfect.
highlights.
That's all I need. I just need to know that everything is okay in the end. And if it's not okay in the end, then I just want you to tell me you didn't read it. I want you to lie.
I'll add some some expressiveness to the ending and change it up a little
That's all
bit.
I ask. Thank you.
I'm sure that's not against copywriting. And, and then you'll do the same for me when it gets to around like the holidays and we have to read like a cheesy Hallmark-esque
Did
book,
you all hear
and
her say
they're
we
just
have to read? No, Spencer,
we have
we get to read.
to. No, stalker romances might be in my taste than Amanda's.
Yeah, I have just always been scared. I don't mean to be. I just am. I'm excitable is probably the best word to use for me. Like I'm just always ready. And so this book made me even more always ready. And like when she got hit with by the car at the very end, I was like, of course.
I, okay, yeah, I get it. I
Yeah.
understand. And I think that's really why, like, dark romance. I think if you like dark romance, you really like it. If you don't, it is like a no, thank you. Okay, so we'll stop the spoilers now, and then Amanda is going to refill her glass. While she does that, I will give my rating, and I say 4 stars. So just look right now is so funny. So if you're listening, you need to take a look at the YouTube channel because Amanda's facial expression of that was pretty funny. But yeah, I would do 4 stars. I think it was really well written for a dark romance and for indie. I think it was indie published. So, and I love indie authors, and I
Mm-hmm.
think sometimes they aren't privileged with like having an editor and a full editing house behind them. So sometimes the writing, you'll find things in there, and and that's usually fine with me anyways, but I thought HD Carlton's writing was really really written well. And I liked the storyline. I liked the characters. I think I wish I was a little more connected to Adeline. That's why I wouldn't go any higher than 4 stars. um, and I think it was a little long. I will say that I think it was a little longer than it needed to be. There was a little bit in the middle that I was like, okay, come on, like let's keep going. But I'm excited to read the second one, and I'll lie to you, Amanda, about how it ends if it's not a good
I'm
ending.
excited for you
All
to
right.
read the second one. Taking all things into consideration, like you said, it was very well written. There is no doubt about that. I could picture everything happening. Like it was great. I enjoyed how dynamic some of the characters were. I enjoyed the different, storylines happening. I enjoyed the murder mystery component of it all. I I just am not. I like dark romance, but I just for some reason just could not love it. I wish I could say like a 2.5, but like I know I can only give like a star because I'm usually just like 2, 3. But I'd probably, if I had to give it one, I would give it a 2 with the disclaimer like I'm not really a dark romance dark romance person. And that makes me kind of sad because I think the book deserves better than a 2. Like it does deserve like a 4, but for me personally, it's a 2 because it's going to take me months to chill out.
That would be like I scarred you thinking this book. Yeah, absolutely. And that's why I think knowing a little bit of what you're going into when reading this
Mhm.
book is really important. Because I mean, I know there's a list of trigger warnings, but like it's even the things that aren't written, understanding that, because you're absolutely right. Like, and I think that's part of what makes reading so great is that we can put ourselves in that place. It is a sense of escapism. And if that escapism is more like a prison than it is like a fairy tale, and that's not where you want to
Yeah.
be, then the escapism isn't great. So yeah, it's your rating, Rocket. I think if this is a really fun conversation because we had such polarizing thoughts on this one. And so I think it'll be fun to keep, maybe no much stock romances, but it'll be fun to keep exploring different things that we
Do you
read.
think you would have picked this book up to read if we didn't do it together, you think?
I think
Mm.
so. Um, Probably because it's had so much discourse on Book Talk that I think I would have been influenced eventually to pick it up. It wasn't high on my list, just because there's a lot of like other fantasy
Mhm.
romance books that I want to read. So I think it wasn't super high on my list, but I did have it in the books I wanted to
Okay.
read. Actually picked it up.
Okay, that's fair.
And you probably
Yeah,
wouldn't
you don't need to ask me.
have.
No, I wouldn't have. No, I definitely would not have read it. Are we ready to talk about our book for next week?
Yes, and you take it
I'm
away.
going to take it away because I'm excited about this.
I
But
think I'm in their little corner of being like, okay, Spencer's not allowed to pick books for a little
yeah,
bit.
I'm taking over for a while until Christmas. I'm just kidding. But our next book is Lessons in Chemistry, which I have heard a lot about this book, and I am not on Book Talk, so I think that goes to say that it is popular. Misogyny, feminism, family, self worth are some of the themes that we're going to see. It says the characters are rich and original, sarcastic, humorous. I think it'll just be a fun read. I know that there's romance in it. I don't know at what level there is romance in it, so we might be like, there was a kiss. I'm not entirely sure going into it. Yeah. So we'll see what that looks like.
Yeah, I've heard about it and I've heard that it's really good, but I don't know anything beyond that. I think I've been really hesitant to read it because I feel like I have this is just speculation. I do not know at all if this is true, that it's going to take place in academia because of the lessons in chemistry. I mean, that's just a sinking suspicion I have. I wonder where I got it. And I just academia and I right now, like we're not chill. So I've been kind of, I think I've been staying away from it because I'm like, the academia world has tortured me enough. I don't want to necessarily read about
So
it,
this book
but
might
I'm
be
excited.
for you what this past book was for
What
me.
this, except yours makes sense because it was like a stalker romance. Mine's just gonna be like, oh, Spencer's just had too much academia, doesn't want it anymore, so she was overwhelmed.
Yeah. A classroom. No.
Oh God, no, anything but.
Honestly, fair enough. We
Yeah.
all have our own things. It's okay.
So yeah, follow us on TikTok and Instagram, and subscribe so you can see when our episodes are launched. We'll try to launch them every Tuesday night, but realistically, they'll probably load by Wednesday morning because they're pretty hefty when you do video podcasts. So
That might be a
that'll
user
that'll take.
error. I would also like to note.
I think it was great. So thanks for listening to the Literary Grapevine, and cheers.
Cheers. Thank you.